Hello and welcome to another episode of the Superpower Quest. And today I get to hang out with my new friend, Tim Tamashiro, who is the author of a book, How to Ikigai, which was a really instrumental book for me when I was writing my book, The Superpower Quest. He is also an advocate of joy. That's what he just told me before we went on camera. So Tim, welcome to the show.
Johnny, it's a real pleasure being here with you. Thank you for inviting me on.
Oh man, I just love it. Can you guys see the joy on this man's face? I love it. Okay, so you said you are the advocate of joy or an advocate of joy. Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that?
Oh, sure. I saw a monk fairly recently doing a TikTok, and he leaned in and he said, "You spend most of your life inside your mind, so make it a happy place to be." And that really resonates with me, and I love to advocate and to give people options, if nothing else, by just simply sharing joy, but also wishing joy upon them. Seeing the lighter side. We live in a very heavy world right now.
Yes.
Right. So I advocate for more joy.
Absolutely, man. Yep, I identify with that, and I think it's so crucial, especially as you say right now when there's just so much grief and there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
We need joy.
It was I can't remember. It was a Chinese philosopher that said, "May you live in interesting times." we are living in interesting times, and I like to, from that joy advocate side, I always remind myself that these times are temporary, but it would be nice to live in precedented times, not, unprecedented times. I want to be precedented.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the work of joy becomes even more important in times like these, I would say.
Yeah.
So with that, can you tell us a little bit of your origin story? So, how did Tim become Tim?
Oh, well, 59 years of work and, pardon me, Johnny.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very, very small town in Canada called Blackfalds. It's a very, very small town. There was only 1,000 people. And I grew up kind of, I was an ethnic minority in that town. It was majority population of, Caucasian people and farmers and small town kind of approach to life. And that created a lot of challenges, but it also created a lot of opportunities because I was almost forced to look at the world in a different way.
Yeah.
And as I graduated from high school, I realized that it was really essential for me to be, you could say, true to myself and to do something with my life that felt like it was meaningful. I wanted to do what I love to do and what I was good at and be able to make a living at it, but really live. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Really live. And that's when I had an epiphany one morning when I was about 21 years old. And I was laying in bed looking at the ceiling, and I didn't have to go into the job that day. And I remember thinking to myself, is it possible to do that? And I went, yeah, it's necessary. So I sat up in bed and I went, well, if that's necessary, then I'm going to music school. So I started off in music, actually, and started off as a piano major, but then moved over to voice. And I've been a singer pretty well since I was 21-ish years old.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my side hustle now. I lived as a musician, as a professional singer for many, many, many years, making my living from it. But I've also been a record label representative for MCA Records. And I was also a radio host here in Canada for 10 years on CBC Radio 2. And I've been a speaker and an author and all these different things. I spent some time as a Buddhist monk for a short time in 2022 as well. Yeah. So I've lived a very scattered, but constantly packed full of information existence. Mm-hmm. And so I guess that's the short version of it.
And then what in there led you to write the book, How to Ikigai? Where does that fit into the story?
Oh, so this is fascinating. So I'm half Okinawan, and Ikigai comes from Okinawa. My grandparents were born there in the late 1800s. And so they lived on a little tiny island called Hamahiga Island, just off the main island of Okinawa. I always had a strong sense of purpose,
Yeah.
and I never really knew why. And then I would say probably 15 years ago, I was sitting around my house after doing a few chores on a Sunday afternoon, and I don't know about you, but there's nothing better than a nap in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And back then, the way that I would fall asleep is to watch the world's most boring television show. And it was, I was looking for a show called How It's Made. It was like how
Huh?
factories build stuff. You remember that one?
I do.
Yeah. I couldn't find it, but I did find a program that was a furniture building competition with contestants and judges and all that sort of stuff. It was a designer television show. One of the contestants that day built a couch that was this kind of gross chartreuse green color, and it had 4 circles embroidered on the back of the couch. And when the host asked about it, the contestant said, that's a symbol for ikigai, and it means your life's purpose or your life's worth. And I
Right.
perked up right away because I recognized that what I thought was a Japanese word. I don't speak Japanese, but I kind
Yeah.
of went, this is interesting. So I was awake. Now, I wasn't going to fall asleep, and I looked it up and discovered that ikigai really is the concept of doing what you love, what you're good at, what the
Yep.
world needs, and what you can be rewarded for. And that was my first foray into understanding what ikigai is. Now, that, as I've already indicated, has been kind of like my life process anyways, to always do things that not only served me, but served people on the other end as well. It has to be like
Yeah.
a boomerang. So I decided to look into this and just to kind of study it bit by bit as I was going along. But at the time, I was a host with CBC and had this nightly jazz radio program, and I'd done it for probably 5 or 6 years by then, and it was starting to feel a little bit like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
You'd think that having a national radio show would be the thing that you'd want to have, for the rest of your life and whatnot. But I have a bit of
Yeah.
a scattery ADHD mind, and I like to try other things as well. So at year 10, I decided, you know what? I'm going to jump into a new realm of life, and I'm going to resign from my radio position. I'm going to go study positive psychology and ikigai. And those two, the combination of those two things have really brought me to where I am today. I was writing a TED Talk about how to ikigai, and mentioned to my daughter back then, I said, I think the next step is to write a book, honey. And she said, you got to do it, Dad. You have to write a book. And I'm not kidding you, Johnny. The very next Monday, I think that was a Friday or something.
Yeah.
The very next Monday, I got an email from a book publisher in the US. And they said, hey, we see that you're talking about ikigai on the internet, on YouTube. Would you be interested in writing a book about ikigai? And I went, yes. And there we go. And that's how to Ikigai has come along. It's with Mango Publishing, and it's been around the world now since 2019.
Yeah.
It's been translated into 10 different languages. There's an audiobook version of it, and I couldn't be happier to know that it's made an impact on your life and many other people's lives.
Yeah. I think what hit me the most was the simplicity of the model. Very accessible. And so before I go to my next question, I'm going to actually show everybody the diagram of Ikigai and what it looks like. So let me make sure I've got the right tab here. Oh, looks like it's giving me a little bit of trouble picking the window. How about entire screen? There we go. Okay, got it. All right, this is actually the first time I've shared a graphic on a video. So
There you go.
this is the intersection, right, between let's get rid of that ad. What you love, what the world needs, what you are paid for, and what you are good at. Is this close enough? Like the language, is this fine?
Absolutely, and but I do want to point out something. Interesting thing is that this Venn diagram was brought to us by a gentleman by the name of Mark Wynn. He's a philanthropist, and he came up with this whole idea of the Venn diagram. This indicates what you're paid for, and that is really interesting.
Yeah.
to make, because my interpretation is that we do what we're rewarded for. You know, there's
Yes.
two types of rewards that we get in life, though.
Mm.
One is extrinsic rewards, and those are rewards that come from outside. It could be salary, it could be prestige, it could be a rise in the company, whatever the case, right? Could be even a little bit ego-based.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what we are rewarded for is an intrinsic
Mm.
type of an approach, where we find rewards in being authentic to ourselves and doing our ikigai on a regular basis, so that it's not only good for us, it's good for the other people that we interact with as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So that language, this language here doesn't necessarily, and I remember you going into that in your book, that
Mhm.
what you're rewarded for in multiple. It's not just money, right? It's
No, we
yeah.
don't. We don't tend to. We need to eat. Yes, we need to have a roof over our head. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
But we also need to find purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like how they've got these different, where the different circles intersect. You could have mission, but not have profession, and you could have passion, but not have vocation, right? You could
Hmm.
have parts of it, but the sweet spot is when you get right to the middle. That's ikigai, which is the intersection between all four things. So you're being compensated, rewarded, you're doing what the world needs, you're doing what you're good at, and you're doing what you love. And if all four of those things are happening, you found ikigai. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
All right. And so where have you most felt that in your life, that you actually found that
You know,
place?
my ikigai is to delight,
Yeah.
and that is something that I've discovered through my own experimentation and
Hmm.
exploration in order to be able to get to that point where I can name my ikigai. And that's the real key of ikigai, is to be able to do the research so that you can name it, so you can begin to really understand it. Uh, my ikigai to delight falls right directly into the stuff that I did in the music business, and in music performance, and in speaking and radio and all this kind of stuff. I always want to connect with people and bring a little bit of light
Yeah.
along with it, you know, just even a little bit of light, maybe a little bit of personality,
Yeah.
and make sure that when we spend time together, it's time well spent together. So
Yeah.
that's why I decided to call my ikigai delight. I can do it a million different ways
Yeah.
every single day. And that's the only direction that I really have to point my feet when I get out of bed,
Yeah.
is to just go and delight someone. And then that's a successful day somehow for me. So it's really, it's been a profound impact on my life to be able to name it like that.
Well, and the simplicity of that is so beautiful to me, right? Because it's like, even the way you said it, I get out of bed, I know which way to point my feet,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
And you have an ikigai too, John.
I
You
do.
better share what your ikigai is right now, so that we can be on even ground here.
Let's do it. Let's have ikigai on ikigai going on right here. So my ikigai is to enhance others.
Mm. How did
And
you come up with that?
well, I went through the process, right? Like I went through,
Mhm.
like the book is very meditative. And so, you're reading the book, and it's got structure, but what I love, it's very free. It's free form, right? So when you're doing
Yeah.
like the Enneagram, or you're doing Myers-Briggs, those are very precise and concrete,
Yeah.
right? And they're guiding you down kind of this really structured funnel.
Mhm.
Ikigai is much more open-ended and meditative. I think that's the right term.
Sure.
And so, it's prompting you with questions, but it's like, there's multiple choice, and then there's like essay question. So
Yeah.
Ikigai is more essay, or like you write your own answer, choose your own adventure type thing.
Yeah.
And so just wandering down the path, and I would tie it. So, there was a moment for me. One of the moments that named me, was I had a poetry teacher in college, and when I'm in college, when I'm especially early college, I'm not an emotionally aware person in the sense of self-awareness.
Yeah.
I've kind of come from a rough background. I've had some cool steps, and I got to college, and I had a teacher, a poet. I had a poetry teacher named Antonio Vigil, and he saw me, and he saw potential, and I didn't want to write poetry, because that was like sensitive, like, that's not what tough people do. It's poetry.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't want to write. But then I see this guy, and he kind of really reminded me of people from my neighborhood, and I could relate to him. And he was a poet. And I was like, okay, well, this guy's really cool, and he's a poet. What's up with that? And so he challenged me one day. He said, look, stop writing fantasy stuff. Like, the next thing you write for me, make it real. I want it to be real from your heart. And I had never thought of writing as a place where I could share emotions or be real. I'd never thought of it that way. Right. And so I go home and I write this poem from, like, I got, you know, I had a really bad disagreement and got kicked out of my house at 15 from my mom. And I carried so much pain around that. Maybe 16, but I carried so much. And so I write this poem called Mama's Cross, and it's about that pain. Right. Yeah. And I go to school or to my class, and Mr. V. Hill says, Johnny, did you wrote your poem? Okay, I want you to read it out loud to the class. Okay, I got to now read it out loud to the class.
Oh, wow.
And so I read this poem that's just full of all my pain, you know, and I read it to the class, and I look at my teacher, and there's tears, right? He has tears in his eyes. And I am like, it was like lightning struck my heart. And I was like, if my words can do that, if words can move people to emotion, I will move people for the rest of my life, right? Like, I just swore it in my heart. I am a poet, you know?
It was an epiphany, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was an epiphany that was so powerful that it was instantaneous change in your life. Isn't that powerful?
Yes. So for the rest, so move people, right? When I think enhance others, I'm always trying to move other people forward. It's just what's in me. It's in me natively. You strip everything away. So that's my ikigai is to enhance others and to move people.
Yeah. Yeah. And just think of all the good that you're doing with that. You're encouraging people to actually level up.
Yeah. Yes.
And that is a gift that will keep on giving and giving and giving, you know, and there's, you know, I don't know if you believe in karma, but that can turn into some really nice stuff for you too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It is so much joy, right? Like, Superpower Quest, in the Superpower Quest language, your superpower is the thing that you do that brings you the most joy. It's when you're at your most effective, and it's when it feels effortless, right? Like, and so that's the convergence of how you know you're operating in your superpower. But joy, right? The first sign of it is joy.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to love it. you have to love it, and you have to affect others positively.
Absolutely. So now I want to peek inside your head, right? Because your ikigai is,
I know. Up there.
I know.
Some dark places too.
Clean it up real quick before we peek in there. So your ikigai is to delight others. And when you get up in the morning, you know which way to point your feet. How does the idea, like, I'm a delight bringer, how does that impact your everyday thinking? Like, let us inside your head. How present is that ikigai in your everyday life?
I'm constantly mindful of the fact that I have a gift that I can look at somebody in the eye and maybe give them some sort of compassion, or like a little lift, or even just eagerly say something, not to get in their face or anything along those lines, but just even a small smile, or if somebody's out walking their dog going, isn't it great to own a dog? You know, just little comments or thoughts. I love to give little kudos to people maybe at the grocery store, saying, oh, you're buying all the healthy stuff. Can you point me to where that is? Or, you know, something along those lines. It could be just a little connection somehow. I think people are starved for connection a lot of the time in the world. And if there was even just a moment of connection, that's all that matters to me. That little lift might turn into something else for them, but it definitely has enhanced my day and put my authentic self out there. That you know how lucky we are that we are all alive right now at the exact same time. This is a fascinating point. Yeah, it's kind of going a little off on a different tangent.
Do it.
So in the history of the universe, or a history of the Earth, rather, there's been approximately, I think it's 113 billion people, right?
Wow.
And right now, there's 8 billion people on the earth, the most that there's ever been. But we are all here on this earth at the exact same time. It's kind of like being in, high school together. We are all experiencing this world at the exact same time. And that in itself is a connection, because we're going, how lucky are we? Look at, we're having this experience of life together. So let's make it happy, or let's do some things that we can remember.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. And I love, I mean, when I see you talk about this, when I see you talk about the grocery store, right? And you're just making it funny to the person that has healthy groceries.
Yeah.
But it's like you have incarnated what it means to be a delight maker. And so there's a sense of purpose in that I think is very deep. How would you relate it to purpose?
First off, it's never harmful.
Yeah.
Right. I'm always very, very conscious of that.
Yeah.
But from a purpose standpoint, that might lean a little bit more into the kind of the things that I do for part of my living as well. I'm a speaker and I do things on stage, and like I say, I do singing and all sorts of different things along those lines. So like I say, time well spent together is very, very important to me. If we're going to be spending even a few minutes together, let's make it joyful, or let's make it positive. So that's where the delight comes in.
Yeah. So what was there a mentor or a person along the way who impacted you along the direction that you ended up going?
Yeah, so many. And I can say that they were all nudges, just a healthy nudge. You can hear my dog walking past me. All the dogs in my life have been very, very powerful teachers for me, because honestly, it just feels like they just have the best outlook on life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I used to say to my son, if he was having a rough time when he was growing up, I would say, we had a little dog named Macaroni. And I said, what would Macaroni do in this situation? and his answer was always, well, he just see it and it wouldn't matter to him. And I say, well, Macaroni's pretty wise, isn't he? So first off, all the dogs in my life, they've impacted me big time, and they will always. Yeah. But I had a junior high school principal named Ken Oliphant, who was a musician. He was a piano player, and he impacted me right off the bat, because he's a man and he's playing piano, and we're singing along to that and whatnot. We're still very, very good friends today. I had another gentleman named Keith Mann, who was another music man, who was very impactful and very supportive, and he always wanted me to be part of events that he was putting together. He's since passed, but he was a massive presence for me. Another man named Ken Mallett, who, again, from college was and is a very joyful person. He was always that person that would always meet you with, how you doing? One of those kind of people,
Yeah.
And it was always genuine. It was always, and it always felt like there was something magical about the way that he dealt with things. And he described to me once on a little piece of paper, or just in a quote for when I was graduating, and he said that Tim is gregarious.
Yeah.
And I thought, that is a really interesting word, and I'd never heard it before. I had to look it up, and I was very flattered by it once I actually figured it out. And there will always continue to be people in my life, but those were the three biggies for me. I also had a boss, I guess, named Terry MacArthur, that was very, very impactful. And he would say things like, hey, you know what, Tim, I'm a big fan of the company, but I'm a bigger fan of you. So you have to do what you have to do, So these types of people have been really super impactful. I can't underestimate the impact that the women in my life have given me either, though. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man. All right. So I can hear even how from your talking, the people that have impacted you have been the people who had that spirit of generosity
Hmm.
It sounds like.
Yeah,
Um, and generosity and affirmation, like specifically affirmation, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
I can't I can't leave out my ex-wife either, you know.
yeah,
I'm just recently divorced, but my
yeah,
ex-wife was a powerful presence in my life in
yeah,
helping me let go and loosen up and really be authentic to myself and speaking with others. She's that one of those kind of people as well, you know.
yeah,
I have, like I say, we were married for 30 years and our marriage came complete,
yeah,
and that was just it. But she's still a powerfully impactful person in my life, and we're still friends. Absolutely. In fact, we're still family.
yeah,
But I have to say that Michelle was a really big impact on the way that I was able to open up and loosen up about life
yeah,
too. Hmm.
yeah, man. Yeah. And that beauty that you receive from others, I can see is a big part of your purpose, right? Because even in the time that we've spent together, I'm saying, all right, Tim, I'm interviewing you. I'm asking you questions. And you've been like, well, Johnny, what about your ikigai? You need to
Yeah,
let
that's right.
everybody know, right?
Conversation, man.
Yeah. And also pointing out and drawing out, right? This is our first time formally talking together.
Yeah.
And you've spent time just pointing out what you see in me, which is that generosity of spirit, that ability to affirm, affirmation of
Hmm.
others.
Hmm.
Um, so there are times when you're just operating in your ikigai, right? You're operating in your superpower and it just feels like magic, right? Because it's joy, it's effortless, it's effective to people around you. Um, what are those moments for you when you just get lost in it? Like when do you feel the most caught up
Well,
in your
I think when it's one-on-one conversations like what we're having right now, you know,
yeah,
it's like ping pong. It's like, oh, I have an idea and you have an idea, and let's bounce them back and forth and back and forth. I have several people in my life that I go and have those types of experiences with, and they always feel like flow. But
yeah,
even when, so I work on cruise ships sometimes, and I get to go and meet guests and do speaking and all that kind of stuff. And it's always fascinating to me to with people from all over the world and hear their story and to be able to provide some sort of light on their story so that they can figure out what their ikigai is and those
yeah,
types of things as well. I love it being on stage, giving speeches. Those are all flow state places for me. And then also, I would say that I'm a big meditator,
yeah,
a big believer in meditation.
yep.
And those experiences, I would say, not only impact me in the moment, but impact the remainder of the day as well in really positive ways as well.
Oh man, I can totally see it. You remind me a lot of my son. I have an 11-year-old son,
Oh,
and
man.
he is in the Superpower Quest framework. He's a connector nurturer,
Oh, man.
meaning that he's inspirational and gregarious, kind of like you said.
Mm.
But his jam is that intimate, loyal connection with a few, right?
Mm.
And so his hero is Samwise Gamgee from the Lord of the Rings. Like
Oh, okay.
that character, right?
Yeah.
Who's not the main character, he's not the protagonist, he's the one who steadfastly serves alongside the protagonist and jumps in enthusiastically and is always encouraging him. That's you remind me of my son. Like that's
Mm.
the energy you have in conversation, um, that desire to give a little bit of light to somebody who might need it. It's all over you, my brother.
Lucky dad to have a boy like that. Good for you.
Oh, yeah, dude. I get to, well, it's almost like I get to, I see he's a lot like me,
Hmm.
and I get through raising him, I get to see what would have happened or what could have happened for me
Mm.
if someone had been paying attention
Mm.
and called forth the good, right? And
Well, you
named
got there though, right?
oh, I got there and I'm
You got
happy.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. I have no, I if it hadn't been hard, I wouldn't have the fire in my stomach that I have to do what I do,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So I'm grateful it was hard. But I also, sometimes I think about the little boy that I used to be, and I just want to scoop him up and hold him and hug him
Mhm.
because he had a lot of sadness, you
Hey,
know?
hey, quick question for you then. do you ever do that? Like, do you ever close your eyes and think of that little boy and give him a big hug and give him that feeling of, you know what, it's going to be okay because you got me now. I'm the grown up.
Yeah.
And everything is going to be okay. Do you ever spend time doing that?
You got me tearing up, brother. Yes. There's two ways, right? There's one way, which is just sometimes thinking about him and learning to love him, because I hated him for a long time, right? I hated him because he wasn't strong enough and he wasn't good enough and he wasn't dominant enough. And it's only within the last few years that I've learned to love him, right? Because he was me, you know, like.
And he didn't know any better. He didn't. It was his first time going through that. He was just winging it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And then I will say, in the mornings, I get time before everybody wakes up, and it's just me and the Creator just hanging out. Mm-hmm. And I often feel held in his arms, and that everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And that's precious to me. You know,
it's necessary, right?
Yeah. It's necessary, man.
Yeah. This is it's a form of suffering that you're going through when you're dealing with your younger self. And that younger self deserves and needs a lot of compassion.
Yeah.
You know, we can, and the beautiful thing about dealing with or even spending time with your younger self, you have the opportunity to be able to justify the fact that he was young and he was naive and he was unwise to the ways of the world, but he made it. He made it all the way to who you are today. So
it's such an encouragement, man. And when you talk, it's interesting because I see like that little child in you. I think there's something to be, I think when people know themselves and begin to love themselves, the little child can start to show, because we don't need so much pretense and protection and walls.
Yeah.
And I can see him, man. I can see your little dude just playing ball and your little dude just smiling at people and just wanting to hold them and hug them and love them. And, you know, I can see your little dude, man. You know, like we would have been buddies. I could have used him in my neighborhood. Yeah. We would have hung out.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. We would have hung out. You know, Johnny, I'll tell you a quick story about, in my monkhood, we had an exercise that was predicated by the day before we became monks. We had our heads shaved and our eyebrows shaved. So they would gather up all the remnants of the hair and the eyebrows into this lotus leaf. And then they would tie it up in a string, and they gave it to us after having our head shaved. And they said, this is for later. And at some point in time during your monkhood, go to a stream, and this will represent your past.
Yeah.
And we want you to release your past into the stream, because you're not that person anymore. You are now elevated in your understanding of what life is, and you're elevated into a new understanding, opportunity understanding. So I did that one day. I went down and had a nice little meditation on top of a babbling brook. You know, you had the bridge that kind of had the little arch in it and stuff. And I was standing above there wearing my orange monk robes, my bald head, my eyebrows gone, looking constantly surprised. And I held the little packet and then had a little meditation, and then I dropped it into the stream. And down the stream it went, and pretty soon it ran into a twig and it got stuck there. And I went, uh-oh, well, that's interesting. But in a couple of seconds, it moved its way past and went down the stream a little bit further, and then ran into a big rock, and it got stuck there for a while too. And I'm going, well, but pretty soon again, it just kind of made its way past there and continued to go down the stream. And that reminded me, that gave me a lesson that showed that all the stuff that had happened in the past was just a series of easy flowing and then troubles, and then easy flowing and then troubles, and then easy flowing and then challenges, and et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, well, if that's the way it is in the past. That's the way it's going to be in the future. And right now, I'm in a state of flow. So
Yeah.
just enjoy this moment because it's not
Yeah.
going to last.
Yeah.
You know, so it's so I wanted to bring that up to you that when we let go of our past, we have the opportunity to be able to kind of see that the future is before us, and it's not going to be much different than what the past is if we choose
Yeah.
it that way.
So how do you reconcile letting go of that past, but then also holding that child that you were? Because I sense there's no conflict between those two ideas,
No,
but I wonder how they relate.
it's linked together with compassion.
Yeah.
It's still there. That kid is still here. This is
Yeah.
still me.
Yeah.
But bear in mind that it has nothing to do with, there are no molecules that are still the same
Sure.
as when you were a
Sure.
child. But
Sure.
the mind is still there.
Yeah.
And if we carry the weight of past traumas with us,
Yeah.
that burdens our happiness now in a lot of ways, right? So
Yes.
the most compassionate thing that we can do is to find some sort of way to let go without ever denying that they all happen and whatnot.
Yeah.
But to be able to kind of go, that's what created me now. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this is the gift.
It's so good, man. So the open hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the open hand towards the past instead of holding it on and letting it dictate the present.
It's a hard thing to do, though. I understand that.
It is hard, but you help people do it.
Well, maybe. I don't know what I help people do. I just want to delight.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, brother, I love the simplicity of your mission, the simplicity of your calling. It's beautiful to me, man. Like the clarity, it's an uncommon clarity that you have about who you are and why you're here. And I'm just extremely happy that I got to spend this time with you. I have, I guess, closing thoughts. So we're towards the end. Is there any final advice that you have for people who are listening and trying to learn more about their identity and who they are?
Their ikigai, their purpose. I often start off my speeches by saying, we have two essential questions that we need to answer in our lifetime. It's just part of being a human being. And the first one has to do with making sure that there are more of us down the line. So will I find love? Will I find somebody that I can procreate with, essentially? And we put a lot of time and energy into that, don't we?
Yeah.
We maybe date somebody for a while and just realize maybe that's not quite the person and whatnot, but I learned something. And then you date somebody else for a while. And, this is, you do your research, I guess.
Yeah.
And eventually, when you've done enough research, you see somebody come along and go, that's the person that I want to spend a lot more time with and whatnot. And that might even be for a season as well. But the other question that we want to answer in our lifetimes is, why was I born? What is my purpose? What's my ikigai? What gifts do I have that are unique to me and are so unique to the entire universe and the 13.6 billion years or whatever, that what can I do in order to be able to realize those things so that they're good for my well-being, but also for the well-being of the others that I serve? Yeah. So it's a very, it doesn't have to be a tedious process. I encourage people to just follow the 4 steps of Ikigai. Do what you love, do what you're good at, do what the world needs, and do what you can be rewarded for. But focus on that first step. Do what you love. Yeah. Just answering that question, do what you love, is probably one of the hardest things that you'll ever do. But I encourage people to do what I call an Ikigai interview with their best friend or somebody that they really, really trust. And get your best friend to just really hold your feet to the fire, and answer just 2 questions. What do you love to do and what are you good at? Because if you're not good at it, chances are it's going to be a real struggle for you to kind of get to that next stage of life. So those Ikigai interviews can be really, really informative. And when you get to the end of that interview, name your Ikigai, give it some sort of a name that resonates with you. It's 2 words. It's the word to, which implies
Yeah.
an action or an intention that we're going to do on a regular basis. And then it has to be some sort of an action or maybe even a phrase, right?
Yeah.
So like your ikigai is to enhance others. Mine is to delight. It could be anything. It could be to teach, to build. It could
Yeah.
be to manifest wishbones. That was one that I heard. I heard another gentleman say, my ikigai is to break things. As
Yeah.
long as it makes sense to you,
Yeah.
then you know where to point your feet when you get out of bed in the morning. And you don't
Yeah.
have to think about it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, so good, man. So good. I love this interview so much. All right. So anything that you're doing, this last part is, how can our audience learn more about your work? How can they connect with you? But then also, is there anything that you're doing that's of interest that people could jump on board with and experience?
So I am in the in between right now. As far as something that's coming up, there's some potential of something really interesting coming up, but I'm not at the point where I can kind of talk about it.
Okay.
But more information and more delight is guaranteed. But I will say, go to my website, timtamashiro.ca, or you can go and visit my YouTube channel, Tim Tamashiro Ikigai, and you can learn a little bit more about yourself more than anything. Maybe there's some context there, some ideas that might be able to help you understand more about who you are, what you love, and what you're good at. And name that Ikigai. This is more for the listener than it is about me. I really encourage people to name their Ikigai.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really appreciate spending the time with you, Tim. Man, just what a beautiful spirit you have, and what a generous and kind and delightful spirit you have. And
Yay!
Everybody's fortunate to get to hear you talk to us about Ikigai. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely.